everyone. Welcome to today's episode. I'm here with Chuck Cogliandro, and he's a fellow Barbara Brennan School of Healing graduate and practitioner. So I'm really excited to bring him on because he has a lot to share with us about what it means to really live fully, passionately, and accessing our creativity. And that's a journey he's been on for quite some time. And I know that if you're struggling to really find what your passions are or to step out of work that isn't serving you and into something else, then sometimes just hearing somebody else's story and really getting some of those tips from an expert like Chuck can really help us. So thank you so much for being with us today, Chuck.
Well, you're welcome, Julie, and thanks so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear all that you have to share with us, but I'd really love to just hear a little bit about that journey for you. What was it like to leave a corporate job and just trust something else and move into something else? How was that process, and what did you learn from that?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know.
I've been living the answers to that question for over 25 years now. I would begin by saying that, I went to engineering school. It was an engineering co-op school. At the time, it was called General Motors Institute, and it's in Flint, Michigan. It's used to be a completely owned subsidiary of General Motors. And as a co-op school, you would go to school for 3 months and then work for 3 months.
Oh, cool.
It was a great setup. And for somebody who really wanted to be an engineer and work at GM, it was a great deal. In fact, there's a woman who was just appointed the first female president of General Motors, and she's a graduate of that school.
Oh, cool. Like that.
Yeah, it's a great deal. I think she even graduated 1 year before I did. I don't think I know her. Anyway, it's a great deal if that's what you want to do in your life. And in my family, there was a lot of support for education and getting good grades and studying hard and getting into a good college so you could have a great career. There was not a lot of support for doing something creative and being a musician.
I'm sure so many of us can relate to that experience of,
especially, God forbid, to be a drummer. I can understand now as an adult and having, had a career in music and drumming that it's many parents' probably worst nightmare when their child wants to be a drummer.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that there was even a possibility in my life that I could pursue music and drumming. And so I kept that passion pretty well hidden, and a lot of times even hidden from myself.
Yeah, I was wondering, did you know you were passionate about drums when you were in school?
I knew in high school that I loved drumming, and it was the first time I even played drums with a friend of mine, and I loved it. But still, because of my family and my family environment, it was something that I didn't talk about a lot, and I never felt like it was anything that I could get support for.
Yeah.
And in fact, my parents, bless their hearts, and I have amazingly loving relationships with them today. They're both still alive, and they're both very proud of me and are thrilled for the life that I've had. But at the time, there was a lot of criticism of my interest in music, even just being interested in music and wanting to go to concerts, like you do as a teenager.
Yeah. So, I think that's an important point because for so many of us there is a different version of that happening, and it's not about our parents it's their own conditioning around what's safe and secure, and really growing up in an environment where the natural gifts and talents and things that are exciting to us aren't supported. It can be really hard to then even open to the gift and the thing that draws you. So I just want to acknowledge you for taking that step. And
well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I understand now that was one of the ways my parents showed their love and support and concern for me, wanting me to have a good life by having a good career.
Right.
So drumming didn't look that way to them at the time.
No.
So about halfway through my engineering degree, I got my first set of drums and started just, bashing away, listening to records and the radio. Eventually, even taking my drums to school with me and jamming with guys at school. And I graduated, and I had a great career in front of me. Yeah. I was a skilled and very well-trained project engineer coming right out of graduating from college. So I got hired into the General Motors division that I had worked for as a co-op student, and I was making a great salary, about as much as you could make as an engineer at that time. Working full-time, had some really interesting projects, and I was miserable. On the outside, it looked wonderful, and it looked like I had everything that you could want in life. But I was really, really unhappy, and I didn't really know why at the time. And there were times when I was working on very important projects and working with coworkers and almost disassociating, where I was kind of watching myself from a distance and wondering, why am I doing this? This doesn't feel authentic. This doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And eventually I went to see a therapist, and he really supported my interest and love in music. And he would reflect to me every time I talked about music that I really came to life. And it was where he could really see my spirit and my energy. And I actually was in a depression. I was only 24, 25 years old. And again, from the outside, it would look like everything is wonderful.
Right.
But I had this spirit inside that was so strong. It was guiding me and teaching me. It was making me uncomfortable.
Right.
It was making me, really need to look at things. So eventually, it was about 2 years after I graduated, I've been working full time. I finally sat down, and I can remember this moment at my desk in the engineering department. I wanted to write down in detail what I was doing to help contribute to the world and make it a better place.
That was just an upwelling in you?
I was at the decision point. I was really thinking, am I going to keep doing this, or am I going to do something else? And I didn't even at that time think I could be a musician, like that would be my life. I just was thinking, I need to make a change. I need to get out of here. So, using my mind at the time and logic, I made this series of steps showing what I did and what effect it had in the world. So I was working on large heavy-duty diesel engines, adapting an electronic fuel injection system to an engine series that didn't have it yet. And these were going into work boats in the southern United States, pushing enormous barges on inland riverways, carrying coal and steel. So I thought, well, it's going to save the utility company some money. Maybe they'll pass on the savings to their customers. Maybe they'll be able to invest in their company. Same with the steel companies. It just didn't seem like enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel like I was going to be contributing myself and my spirit and my essence and my gifts in a way that was going to be meaningful for me and really contribute to the world in a way that I wanted to. And so that was the turning point.
Wow.
And I don't remember how long it was after that, but probably within a few months after that, I wrote my resignation letter and turned it in.
Wow.
And my boss could not understand it because I've been a great employee. And why are you quitting? Well, I'm not sure, but I think I want to try music.
Yeah.
So
brave.
Well, yeah, I had good support from my therapist,
yep.
And my good friends who really knew me, were very much in support of this.
Yeah, I want to highlight two things about that process that feel really important about what you're sharing is, one, you didn't know, but you at least took the step to get support from a therapist. Right. And someone today could do that by getting support from a coach or a healer or a therapist or someone that is a little bit outside of their inner working world to kind of reflect something new. So I love that you did that before you even knew what the choice was. And then the other thing is that I love how you just kept asking questions. Like, even if it was a rational process, there was this questions that you kept asking to get in touch with what was really true for you. So right. I think that's another really good process we can take away from what you're sharing.
Right. Up to that point in my life, I'd really met the world through my mind. And I'd been very well trained in my, elementary school up through high school, and definitely my engineering program to use my mind in very good, clear, effective ways. But this was a whole new energy of the spirit and the heart and soul that was coming up that I had not been as familiar with.
Right.
So, some people call that spiritual emergency. Stanislav Grof's book called Spiritual Emergency, rather than looking at things through the lens of a problem or a psychosis. And that was the way I looked at it at the time. I thought there was something wrong with me. Why am I so unhappy? It actually was a spiritual blossoming, but it was a very uncomfortable experience to have in my life. And I think many people have that, and they don't know how to deal with it.
Right.
So, that's a great reinforcement that you're saying at those points in our lives. And they can happen at many points in our lives. It's not just when we're young. When there's a transition that's developing in your life, to get the support of someone who can reflect to you in a clear and objective way, what they're seeing to help guide you further along your path in this lifetime.
Yeah, and just what you just shared about letting that feeling of the depression or the discomfort, totally just a mindset shift from this is a problem to, oh, something else is trying to move through me. It's not a problem. It's just an opening. So just shifting our mindsets to seeing that. And I always like to say, it's like when we were learning to tie shoes, it was uncomfortable. We didn't know how to do it and it wasn't new. And so starting to live life from a place of, oh, my spirit's trying to move through me, that's new for so many of us. So it takes that uncomfortable phase of even figuring out how to be with that or be with it in a different way. So I love that you've been giving us space by sharing your story to kind of look at it in a different way.
Sure. And definitely at the time, I didn't have this language for it, and I didn't understand it in this
Of
way.
course.
Only going through, years of exploration and self-discovery and going to Barbara Brennan School and, doing other spiritual development type of trainings and programs that I've come to see it in a different way. But yeah, it does take a very perceptive person in your life to see it this way for you. If you're going through a difficult time or depression, to see it as an evolution and a transformation rather than something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, because usually those transformations, those transitions periods, they just are messy in our lives. It's part of that being with that is just accepting it might be messy or uncomfortable.
Right. So if I could just mention a couple other things that inspired me. One was a book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which I've read 5 or 6 times in my life, and I had read it 2 or 3 times by then. And the scholarly work of Joseph Campbell has been a great inspiration to me. And a lot of his teaching, people will bring it down to just a very, very simple essence of follow your bliss, which people have heard that. But it's so much deeper than that. If you really watch his videos or read his books, he's really saying that, on the hero's journey, you may look like you're going to throw yourself into the abyss of the unknown, which at the time, that's kind of what it was like for me. But because I was young and I didn't have any obligations, I wasn't married, I didn't own a house, I had money saved up because I went to a co-op school, so I had no college debt. I was able to quit my job and do exactly what I wanted to do for the next few years, really. And so it wasn't that scary. I actually was given so much life energy and so much inspiration when I quit. One of the interesting things was it just so happened that I ended up quitting in January, and I lived in Michigan. And being inspired by Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, I wanted to do a big motorcycle trip. But January in Michigan is not the best time to start a motorcycle trip. So I ended up waiting until that June, and then I ended up taking about 4 months. I bought a big Honda motorcycle. I rode all over the country. I went to about 40 states that summer. And I just let myself have the space that I never had, even, through high school and college, to really just be with myself, to roam the earth, to wander, and to find my truth and my inspiration, which the result of that really was that I do want to try music and I do want to try drumming. So that was the beginning of getting more serious about it. And I started taking lessons for the first time. I think I was 24 or 25 years old when I first started taking lessons.
Wow.
If I could impart that piece of wisdom also, please don't ever let it be a limitation how old you are or whatever you think is the model for how you should do something creative in your life. So if someone's going to be a professional musician, they're usually going to start on that path much younger than 24 or 25 years old. Usually it's by junior high or high school at the latest. So I ended up starting to play in really awful garage bands when I was 25 years old, usually with younger people. But I quickly made progress. I was able to take the skills and the discipline and the maturity I had from my engineering program and apply that to studying the drums and studying music. So I quickly moved into playing in better bands and making recordings and doing a little bit of touring. And then around 1992, I made another big move and I left Detroit, where I grew up, and moved to Atlanta. And a whole new world opened up for me there in African drumming.
Wow.
And that's my concentration for over 20 years now.
Oh, cool. And I want to hear more about that. One of the things that I want to ask you is something, it seems really important to me that you took those 4 months and gave yourself some space.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What could you encourage us, what did that do in terms of, if you could look back now, how that informed that unfolding of this creative energy, which turned into a whole, career for you?
Right.
How did that space of that 4 months sort of support that, allow that?
Right. It was literally the first time in my life that I gave myself exactly what I wanted, and I wasn't following what I thought I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have any specific goals for the trip other than just to travel. And it was really scary at first because I'd never done anything like that. I was by myself. But it turned out that people everywhere were so friendly and so interested in someone traveling on a motorcycle, and they'd want to hear my stories and talk to me. What it really did was it let me trust myself, put me in touch with my own instincts and my own truth and my own decision-making process. And it really gave me a lot of self-confidence. So I was blessed with a good mind, so I could be a good engineer. But I was always playing a role. I was always doing what I thought I was supposed to do in doing that. So for the first time, I was really in the moment making my own decisions about where I wanted to travel, who I wanted to spend time with or not spend time with. And just, the path of adventure really opened up. Yeah. So the whole experience was imbued with this energy of adventure. And even the simplest and most mundane things took on an amazing glow. And it just turned into 4 months of really amazing, idealized, romantic living. And total freedom. I could move when I wanted to or stay in a place if I really loved it. I did some odd jobs along the way. I met a guy who did trail rides in South Dakota, and I ended up staying there for a while, learning a bit about that with him and stacking hay. And just, it was just a fantastic adventure. And to see the whole country, it's 40 states from coast to coast. I went to both oceans that summer, and to really get an appreciation for the natural beauty, the vastness of the land, the diversity. But everywhere I went, people were so friendly.
Wow.
And
I love that. The freedom, the space, and just you finding what's true for you and starting to trust that was something that worked in your life.
Yeah, it really did. I had nothing to worry about. It was completely stress-free. A couple times, I had to do a little maintenance on the motorcycle, but that always worked out. I met a bunch of guys coming up from Florida who were going to a Harley-Davidson rally in South Dakota called Sturgis, which is the biggest Harley rally in the world. And I ended up riding with them. And I never would have done that, if it wasn't for being on this adventure. That turned out to be an amazing experience. So that's one of Joseph Campbell's teachings is when you get on your own path, and it really is your authentic path, people will appear all along the way to help you through doors that you didn't even know were going to be there and take you to the next level.
It's so true. So what I'm taking away is just to give ourselves a little space to even see what would I really want to do? How could I give myself space for that is a powerful takeaway. And hearing, I've had similar experiences of travel opening me, and just the whole world becomes available. So thanks for sharing that. We need to take a quick break, everyone. We're going to be right back with Chuck. And hopefully we can get into more about what really unfolded in your music career in the last 20 years.
All right.
Stay tuned.
All right.
Okay, welcome back. I'm with Chuck Cogliandro today, and his website is kumandi.com, Kumandi. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. So check out his work. Tell us a little bit about what's unfolded now that after you stepped away from what everybody thought was best for you and that career path that looked so good and into something so completely unknown like drumming. Tell us a little bit about what unfolded.
I had a lot of fun, to start off. I was playing in rock bands, and it was a blast, and I really had a great time doing that. I always felt like playing rock music was great, fun, and entertainment, but there was something deeper I was longing for in music, and that was one of the reasons I left Detroit and moved to Atlanta. I didn't even know specifically what might be in Atlanta that was going to fulfill that place for me, but I just had I was really drawn there, and I also had a good buddy from college who lived there, and he said I could stay with him. So I ended up staying with him and his girlfriend for about 8 months when I first moved here to Atlanta, where I still live. And it wasn't too long after I moved there, just a month or two, that I went to an African dance class that had live drumming. And there was something about that completely changed my life, put me on a completely new path. It was still music and drumming, but it was music and drumming in a way that was connected to a very deep sense of community and culture and the earth and it's ancient, and it was really live. It was really serving the emotional and spiritual needs of a community.
Mm-hmm.
And so that started me on a new path. I ended up learning how to carve the drums and
Wow.
play the drums. And after a couple of years, I started to teach and started getting in performing groups, began leading drum circles. And even for a time, I was taking the principles of group drumming into corporate settings and
Wow.
using drumming as a model for listening and creativity and communication and team building.
Wow.
And that was a blast to go back into a corporate setting,
Yeah.
but being more of who I am and doing something really fun and creative and working with people who maybe weren't so familiar with that type of world of creativity and spontaneous high energy, but giving them those kind of gifts.
How do you think that creative aspect and really tuning into it is like a force for awakening or healing? Because it's just such a theme in your life, but for so many of us, even accessing our creativity is like, what is that? I don't know. I don't even have that. And I'd love to hear, like, it sounds like it was just such a natural awakening for you to that and how valuable it is. But where can we, I don't know if you get my question, but.
I think so. What comes to mind first for me is it's about changing patterns and changing habits and changing familiar ways. So there's the very visceral energy with drumming that's very powerful. And little children do not need to be told what to do with the drum. They very spontaneously know what to do. It's in their instinctual self. I think it's in their DNA. They just know what to do. There's a way that bringing drums into a corporate setting or just about any kind of setting just raises the vibrational level of the environment instantaneously without anything even happening. Sometimes that's even scary for people because I've gone to plenty of events and sometimes it's a church event where it's not usual to have drums in a church or a place of worship. Some churches are great with it and they love it, but other churches not so much. There can even be some anxiety brought in with drums because they're loud, they're high energy, they're spontaneous. I think they move energy in a way that touches our instinctual levels, and some of those instinctual levels have been covered over through patterning and habits and familiar ways of being that have worked for us and have gotten us far in life, but maybe they need to be reviewed and maybe even transformed or discarded in order to go into that scary unknown place of what's next, what's going to come in to replace those things that we're very familiar with.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question a little bit?
That does. I mean, what I'm hearing two things from you. One is that you didn't know that when you started drumming. You just did it because it was something upwelling in you.
It was a really strong calling that I had. And the closer I got to it, the more strongly it called to me. And then once I stepped onto that path, more and more opened up until it did become more natural. But that was a process of many years.
Right. But just like, can we allow ourselves to just follow those instincts? Like, I don't know why, but I'm drawn to this medium, this type of expression, and just do it. We don't have to understand what the power is. And now looking back, you can really see how drumming serves as a way to move and open and allow you to be more of who you are instead of staying in the old conditioned boxes that we're in. Just the process of drumming and moving the energy in that way.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Just bringing that energy in is going to shift something.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways in scientific terms, there are ways that drumming shifts your brain state.
Yeah.
And it increases both alpha and beta energy, which is a really unusual kind of configuration. But yeah, what it does is it helps move you out of a particular way of being that's familiar. And if you're open to it and if you allow it, it can open up a new space of the unknown, creativity, and more possibilities. I think it's also a way of getting out of the mind. It's a way out of meeting the world with your mind and opening up to ways that you don't even know, opening up the sensorium of your physical body and your emotional body, and allowing that there are energies that might be able to come in that are unusual, not coming in just through the mind, and not even just coming in through the senses you're used to, but coming in through your energy body and touching your spirit and your heart and your soul.
Yeah, I really love how you're sharing that because the mind does want to keep us safe and sort of look at things in a certain way. And the creative energy of in all of us, it does require a little bit of the unknown because it's something new birthing. It's like something new on this pulse of newness that comes from the unknown. And so it's so
Hmm.
important if we've been in that space of everything being processed through a rational way of being, to being
Right.
open to saying, oh, I don't know what this is, but I know that if this isn't working, what I'm doing isn't working, just accessing my creativity by playing, by doing drums, whatever it is going to bring something new in because I have to access that unknown where all things come from to do it.
Right.
So it's a really
Sure.
great way to allow something as powerful as drumming to shift us in easier than having to like figure it all out.
And rhythm is very naturally residing in the body.
Mm.
So when you play drums and you connect with rhythm, you're naturally going to connect more with your body. So it's going to bring your energies down from maybe more of a focus in your mind down to your body, and you will have access to more of those sources of information that might come up from the earth through your feet. They might come from other layers of your being and other layers of yourself that you're not used to. Any kind of movement of the body is going to move energy, and I think it's going to stimulate creativity, and it's going to stimulate moving into new possibilities.
Yeah.
So drumming and dance have been used in cultures all over the world as ways to celebrate together, as ways of connecting with the ancestors, and I'm sure as ways of just having fun, but also stimulating inspiration and possibilities for new ideas coming in.
Yeah, that can even be a new awareness that the new things we want to bring into our life can and actually do come from that place of fun and inspiration where we can get so used to making it so hard or challenging and actually just going and, dance is my particular way to find that pathway back
Really.
to what is new and what wants to move through my body. So I really understand it from that perspective. And I love how you're bringing music and drumming into this as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where you're at now. What kind of work are you doing? How has your drumming brought you to the present moment?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. So I've been a full-time musician for over 20 years. The last time I had a real job was early 1993, and I've made a life in music, and it's just been a wonderful thing. I was inspired by a couple of my drum students who went to the Barbara Brennan School to eventually attend there myself,
Oh,
and I became a healing practitioner, and I have a practice. I see clients at an office here in Decatur where I live. And I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, I was also drawn to a healing method called family constellations.
mm-hmm.
And my teachers are Peter and Jamie Faust, who are also graduates of the Barbara Brennan School, and they were teachers there. And my wife and I have actually studied family constellations with them, and we're currently leading family constellation
Beautiful.
healing groups here in Atlanta. And what I've recently brought into this, really in the last year, is as part of the introductory session that we do for one of our seminars, we do ancestral drumming. So we
Mm.
invite everybody to bring a drum or percussion instrument, and we have a free form, wild, celebratory drumming to awaken the ancestors, remind them what it feels like to be in a body, to be dancing, to be moving energy, and so that they can come close and feel invited and feel honored. And the family constellation work really has to do with looking into your family lineage to see what kind of issues were unresolved in previous generations, and using representatives to stand in for family members to help get those stuck places moving and unstuck, and allow the life force and the love to flow again in the family. So we have found the drumming has been just phenomenal for the participants who come. It gets the energy moving, it gets them relaxed, and it opens up a space. And we usually do it on a Friday night, and then on the weekend we have the constellations work. And I think it's really helping
Wow.
honor the memory of the ancestors. The family constellations was actually created by a man named Bert Hellinger, who lived in South Africa as a missionary priest for 15 years. So he lived with the Zulu ethnic people, and he learned their customs and their ways of keeping the spirit of the ancestors alive. So the roots that I have in African drumming for 20 years has resonated
Wow.
perfectly with this work. All my African teachers have passed on the sense of lineage and the sense of history, not only the way that they hold their own parents in respect and their ancestors, but also the way the music has been passed down from teacher to student in an oral tradition for centuries and centuries. So I've received that download from my teachers for 20 years, and now with Family Constellations, I'm bringing my sense of that into the work as a new and augmented way to honor the work that people are doing with their family histories.
Beautiful. I got chills when you said that. It's like it's all coming full circle, and this beautiful
Yeah,
gift of your drumming coming back into healing work in this really profound, deep way.
yeah, it feels really great, and I feel really fortunate and honored to have these streams coming together in this way.
It's beautiful. I want to just say again, your website is Kumandi, KUMANDI.com. If people want to find more about the family constellation work and how drumming comes into that and how they can, maybe that's a pathway to just explore some healing and some opening. If you're making a big transition in your life or you're inspired, let Chuck inspire you and check out his body of work. I have one last question. We have just a minute left. Any, you know, any regrets that you didn't stay in that corporate job? Any ways that
No,
it was
I
even
would
even like a
say
distant memory, right? It all worked out, it sounds like. It all worked
there's
out.
there's always, you always give up something to gain something else. So what I gave up was a large salary and more security. But what I gained was a life, and what I gained was inspiration and the places I've traveled, the people I've met. I never would have had these experiences and the richness of life and the fullness of life and the happiness that I have without having given up those things.
Beautiful. Very well said. Thank you so much for being with us today. You've inspired me. I'm going to go. I feel like, oh, yeah, I want to get into that African drumming now and let it move me in my dance. So thank you for
Great.
that.
I hope you do.
I will. And thank you for sharing just so authentically your journey and being an example of this life fully lived that's available to all of us when we take those risks and listen and say yes to ourselves. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and thanks for inviting me, Julie. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. All right. We'll keep in touch and stay tuned. Everybody, just take a moment to comment here on this page. What inspired you from what Chuck shared today, and how can you take that into your life? I'd love to hear from you, and we can check back and respond personally to you. All right. We'll see everyone next week, and I look forward to deepening our journey. Aloha from Maui.
See ya.